Hi everyone, my name is Hope, and I will be continuing where Katie left off in our Jigsaw classroom experiment. I'm going to go in depth about how the experiment worked and the mechanisms that, were the outcome of the experiment. So I'm going to be using my iPad to read off of because I'm blind, so I need my notes, and here we go. Okay, so the experiment in the classroom. So Blaney, in 1977, was the first to investigate the effects of the Jigsaw classroom. And so he took 10 fifth grade classes in Austin, Texas, with three control groups, with the three control groups getting regular traditional teaching styles from well-recommended teachers, I suppose. And the experimental group in the Jigsaw classroom met 45 minutes a day for 3 days for 6 weeks. The Jigsaw classroom, basically, they would take and split up a daily assignment, and they would give it to a group, which usually consisted of like 6 people, and each one of the students would get a different part of that assignment, and they would have to learn it and read it and research it and really grasp the knowledge, and then they would have to tell and teach it to their other group mates. And this helped because it got rid of the competitive kind of educational style and became more of an intertwined learning co-op where you really couldn't learn anything or get anywhere without your other people in your group coming together and learning their individual sections to bring up the whole picture. So each person had a jigsaw piece, so to speak, and as they went and taught each part, it made the full puzzle. And so that was really, really cool. And the Jigsaw classroom, at the end of the experimental period, went through like testing and evaluating the students who were in the Jigsaw classroom compared to the traditional classroom to see what effects this educational style might have had as far as integrating the different kids who had just been brought in from desegregation and reducing prejudice and things like that. So what they found actually was really cool because the Jigsaw classroom experimental group saw increases in self-esteem and greater liking for school and their group mates. So being able to cooperatively learn and depend on one another actually increased their liking for school and their stronger grasp of how we're not going to get through this without the help of our peers. And that was a really unique type of learning, considering all the other type of learning is basically competitively based. And so those classrooms benefited increased self-esteem and performance and liking for school. However, in the traditional classrooms, none of those things were seen. None of those improvements, none of those achievements, so to speak, were seen in the traditional style of learning. There was still high prejudice, there was still high competitive nature, there was nothing cooperative. And everybody really benefited from the Jigsaw classroom except for the Mexican Americans who preferred traditional style of teaching, because in the traditional style they could just sit back and not talk, whereas in the Jigsaw they would have to communicate with their group, which was really hard because a lot of Mexican Americans didn't have very good English literacy and language skills, and so they became very embarrassed and felt very defeated because they had to teach these classmates of theirs and they could hardly speak the language themselves to be able to teach them. So that became very frustrating for them, which was unfortunate because they actually ended up liking school a lot less in Jigsaw classrooms because of that reason of embarrassment for not having the same language skills as the other kids. And however, this experiment was reconstructed and redone in a different, I believe it was in California by Luker in 1977. He took 303 5th and 6th grade classes in 5 elementary schools. In 6 classrooms taught Jigsaw, and 5 classes taught traditional. So for 2 weeks they had this testing period, so they did kind of like the assessment of achievement and stuff like that at the end of the Jigsaw classroom experiment. And My minority students actually performed best in Jigsaw environments, which isn't surprising considering the results of the last experiment that was done. Um, they were more drawn to the Jigsaw classroom because they felt more included. They felt more knowledgeable and well-rounded as far as being able to work with their peers and solve problems. That was a really good and enlightening feeling for those kids who had once just been separate and put in competitive positions, and everybody was against each other and every man for himself pretty much, which didn't create a very cohesive environment. Um, the underlying mechanisms that made this so effective in the Jigsaw experiment was the fact that the Jigsaw experiment increased participation. They increased participation because everybody had to be involved, everybody had to talk, everybody had to do their own part to get the whole story, the whole puzzle. And so it increased participation, and so when increasing participation, it also enhanced interest in school because they're actually learning, and it was almost like a game that they were playing, where they were put in roles of being able to teach somebody, which was, you know, really empowering for especially the people like blacks and the ethnic group, I believe is how you say it. They had to be in positions where they actually taught their white peers, and that made them feel very confident. And so with the Jigsaw classroom, Anglos and blacks liked each other better in those environments because they had to cooperate. They had to get to know and understand their partners, which is a really good aspect. It also increased empathetic role taking. So Bridgman in 1977 tested Chandler's theory of role taking cartoon series with 120 fifth graders. And this cartoon series depicted like an event that would happen, and they would have to talk and talk about that event that went on. And so half of those students were in Jigsaw groups and the other half were in traditional learning environments. And the cartoon series measures the degree in which the viewer can set aside facts and adopt a perspective vastly different from their own. So they had to better understand other people's perspectives. They had to put themselves in the position of the person who was in trouble or getting hurt or something like that. They had to think outside of their own opinions and try to understand the other people's perspectives. And that actually increased empathy for not only, being able to understand other people's perspectives, but look inside themselves, and view themselves as the bystander position rather than the judgmental one. So basically, they had to take the events and try to understand the other person's perspective, which actually increased productivity in the classroom overall because it helped them understand that everybody has their own perspective, everybody has their own way of doing things, and so they had to listen. And in Jigsaw classrooms, they had to take in all the information of all their classmates and kind of decide as a whole what was going to be done, what was going to be said, and what was right. And so that helped them better be empathetic with other people rather than judging the people who of ethnicities other than themselves. It made them cooperate and commingle, and that was really good effect. Another effect that the Jigsaw classroom had was their attributions, the way they attributed things. And so we've been learning about attributions, and basically it means how we describe the events that happen in our life, or in other people's lives, so to speak. So if we see one of our classmates fail at something, our normal interpretation of that is, well, they're stupid. They're not, Whereas if we were to fail, we would think, oh, well, it was just really hard. It has nothing to do with us. So we think other people's failures is based on internal characteristics, whereas we think ours is situational, external characteristics. So things that are out of our control. Well, in the Jigsaw classroom, it kind of made the students view their classmates almost as if they were themselves. So basically, they didn't look at their classmate who was failing or the group mate that was failing and be like, wow, you're just stupid. No, they worked with the classmate and was like, no, this assignment's hard, it's difficult for all of us, it has nothing to do with your internal characteristics. It has to do with the variable situational characteristics on the outside, external, that are going on. And that was a really interesting thing, because our tendency is to blame other people shortcomings or failures based on internal things, whereas in the Jigsaw classroom it helped not only increase empathy but also increase understanding and proper attributions, as far as placing our attributions on external things instead of internal, for not only ourselves but for our group mates, which was really, really interesting. And basically, the overall Jigsaw classroom helped with increasing performance. And they thought this would happen, that increasing performance would also boost self-esteem and confidence, and being able to participate and liking school, which is exactly what happened, because people feel like they're actually learning, because people are feeling like they're actually participating and getting the knowledge. They actually feel more confident and more self-confident, and that creates liking for school. Whereas in traditional classrooms, most people will feel defeated if they're not getting an assignment or getting the material like they're supposed to be. They think, oh, I'm just stupid. And so when people feel defeated, they don't want to go to school, they don't want to try. And so in the Jigsaw classrooms, it actually kind of eliminated that fear of being defeated or anything. It actually encouraged and supported their growth, and it was a really good thing to witness, because it showed that we work better together, we don't work better alone. And so it increased our attention and support and respect for our peers, and positive effects on self-esteem. So it had nothing but great things and benefits that happened with the Jigsaw, except for the Mexican Americans, who kind of felt behind, kind of felt embarrassed and pressured, because they had somewhat of a language barrier. So overall, the Jigsaw experiment actually went pretty well. But I'm going to let Andrew take it over from here, because he's going to be concluding this and talking about other techniques that may be used to improve educational knowledge. So, thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the presentation.